Welcome to the Outlaws podcast. It's the Week 5 Power Rankings. Today joining me on the show is Jordan and Little Ben. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. Is this the first time you've been on the show this year?
It is. I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it. Unfortunately, before we start, I have to say that I feel like the better team won this week against Little Ben. And hats off to him. He's actually a pretty good class act, all things considered.
Now, are you just playing nice because he's on the other line with us, or would you be saying that if he wasn't right here with us?
Well, I don't like anybody in the league, but Ben is way down my list of people I don't like.
Well, yeah, at least it was a close matchup. It was 5-4, but what I want to start off the week was first, and Ben, I want to get your thoughts on this. Drew is going to lose his first matchup of the year. It's 6-2 right now. Could get a little bit worse if Hanley does anything tonight. But I got to ask you about the Jason Kipnis drop. I mean, we went through this 2 years ago, right?
We did. This was this is history repeating itself. Before we delve into that, I want to say I don't appreciate Jordan's passive-aggressive approach here, trying to stir up a rivalry. That's fine. We can save it for when we play. But let's go on to the Kipnis trade. Yeah, I mean, the Kipnis drop, that's something that when he was cut, I think that the reason he was cut is because I texted Drew, I think it was exactly a week ago today, maybe it was last Saturday, about a pickup. I was all out of pickups. Long story short, I ended up trading him Jimmy Rollins for a pickup, and he cut. I thought he was just going to cut Betances or whatever his name is for the Yankees, but he ended up cutting Kipnis too, and as soon as he dropped Kipnis, I ended up messing with him. Kipnis, what are you doing? You can't cut him, blah, blah, blah. And I know the history kind of got him worried. And for whatever reason, nobody put in a bid on him, which I was shocked. I thought for sure Michael would go after him.
I was shocked.
Right?
I was pretty surprised too. And I think the only reason that Drew was able to drop him is because his O rank is just outside the top 100.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It makes a lot of sense. I was actually kind of surprised that he didn't bid back to pick him up because, as we all know, another good thing about waiver money is you cut somebody and you want him bad enough, you can pick him up, just as Craig Holland a few years ago when I dropped $100 on him.
Yeah, definitely remember that. But Kipnis, again, I think Mike was playing Drew this week. Michael picked him up, and I haven't looked at his whole stats for the week, but I know he's gotten at least 3 home runs and a couple of steals. He's just been on one of those, classic Jason Kipnis tears that he goes on. He's so streaky. And, Drew has a second baseman of Josh Harrison. He's just done absolutely nothing this year. I had Altuve. Was part of the reason I didn't place a bid on him, but that Drew's got to be kicking himself, not just because of the loss, but got to be really down in the dumps right now because of the Kipnis thing.
Yeah, that's just something that eats away at you all season. Whenever you cut somebody, regardless of what it is, and you monitor them, and they end up, just catching fire, doing whatever. That's a tough pill to swallow right there. So I know he's thinking about it, and it's burning him hard.
Jordan, why didn't you place a bid on Kipnis? I know you've been a big fan in the past.
There's actually a reason behind that, and I guess, full disclosure, I was a big Simeon fan, and I was really surprised when Little Ben dropped him, and I thought I was bidding high when I bid $3 on him, but I was waiting on, I expected actually to get Simeon, and that was when Kipnis was dropped, and there's like a 3-day period essentially when you're waiting on that, so Steph bid like $25, I think. And he might be a player that ends up getting dropped later too. But what really stands out to me about Kipnis though is that baseball, unlike any other sport, I feel like you watch it, and when you see a player play, you're like, oh, I want that guy. And I saw Kipnis, and he looked relaxed, he looked healthy, and I'm like, if the Simeon deal doesn't work out, I definitely want him because he looks like he could be the player of a couple of years ago for sure. Because he's been on my team. I mean, Michael and I have had the same team, and he's always been well for us. But it just didn't work out. But I'm happy for Michael. If there's any other team that I want success, it's definitely his.
And that surprises me that I noticed that there were a few different bids on Simeon. I didn't know he was in such high demand. I'm sure Ben didn't either, or he maybe would have tried to trade him. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten a whole lot for him. But I'm definitely surprised that Seth spent the big bucks on him. I definitely would have thought that I would have been able to get him for $3 off the waiver wire too.
Yeah, I was the second highest at 3, and then there's somebody else at $2. I think that was Derek.
Oh, okay. So obviously Drew's had a little bit of a rough week, and I've had him first in the power rankings for a few weeks now, so let's take a chance to poke fun at Drew a little bit if we can. He was making fun of Ben a couple weeks ago about the Weaver drop. So Jered Weaver, he's long been a fantasy ace. The last couple of years he's not really been on that pace, although he led the league in wins last year, I think. But obviously he's just been getting demolished so far early on in the season. I heard that his average fastball velocity is like 83 miles an hour right now, which has got to be like the worst in the majors. And what do you think about that? Do you think the Drew's got the guts to cut him?
No, there's absolutely no way Drew will cut him. I mean, this guy, Jered Weaver, is the modern day equivalent of Ken Lincecum, 3 or 4 years ago. He's got the name recognition, but he's absolutely terrible. Yeah, and every report I was reading is just Weaver's fastball is, like you said, it was an 83, something like that. I don't have the patience to deal with somebody like that. I know he led the league in wins, but I mean that stat is completely, well, not completely irrelevant, but there's so much more into that than a pitcher getting wins, And I know he's still on a good team, but he's just, like I said, he's like the new Lincecum. He's gonna have 2 or 3 starts where he pitches pretty good, but then he's gonna have 3 or 4 where he just absolutely blows up and destroys you. And that's not a roller coaster ride I want to take again.
Well, what I don't understand, what was Weaver's rank?
It was triple digits.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I don't understand is everything Drew condemns. I mean, everything.
It does go against his principles.
Drew does, yeah. So I don't, and he had a stat, and every time anybody has a trade, and I guess I'm proud to say I haven't vetoed a trade this year. But every time somebody does a trade, they throw out just, especially in baseball, it seems like this crazy stats. And I remember Drew saying Votto is ranked 923rd in the last 7 days.
Right.
How could you make a trade for a player who's ranked 923rd in the last 7 days? I'm like, that's ridiculous.
That was about the worst lawyer argument I'd ever heard when he said something about none of these players, blah blah blah, were ranked last year. And
I don't know. Brian's had some pretty classic ones. We're talking to the king of excuses, Brian O'Neill. Trade excuses.
All right. Well, you guys mentioned it. We might as well just jump right into it. That we had the first vetoed.
Let's do it.
We had the first vetoed trade of the season. It was that Ben, you might have to help me out on all the pieces, but essentially it was Votto, Burnett, Salazar, and a couple other pitchers from Ben. I think maybe Desclafani and Cozart, and he's basically getting back Strasburg, Price, and Duda. I did not veto this trade. I'm probably not going to veto anything all year unless it's just really, unless I think it could be some collusion or Ben's just trying to dump his team like he tried to do a little while ago.
What do you mean?
But, we had a lot of vetoes, and Jordan, I specifically wanted to ask you about that because at one point you had said that you were going to veto only because John had vetoed. It's like you hadn't even looked at the trade yet. So tell me what was going through your head.
Okay, I can't explain that, actually. Ben had sent me a couple trades about a day prior to that that were him trying to tank his team to show Commissioner Nosak his bond. And I told Ben I wouldn't have any part of it when I saw a trade going down, and mixed with John had said previously the day before that he wouldn't veto a trade unless he thought collusion was going on.
Right.
So I didn't look at the trade, and I knew Ben was already trying to undermine the commissioner. And so I figured I'd go ahead and veto it. But when I looked at it, Ben was getting the better end of the deal, so I rescinded it.
Yeah, and I had sent a few trades out. I think it was the night that the Rockies reliever, and the trade you and Seth did.
He has a name.
A bunch of trades out. Well, I cannot pronounce it. I hesitate to even call him the closer because I'm going to go ahead and assume he's not even going to get that role if he comes back. But anyway, yeah, I had sent a bunch of trades out, so I think that's what Jordan was referring to. Much like obviously dump trades.
So Ben, obviously I've been there in the past. I haven't had a trade vetoed this year, but I've had many in the years past. So just tell me, were you monitoring that situation very closely? Was that stressing you out? Was that just making you mad, or what were your emotions?
No, I think I even told you after we made that Polanco deal earlier. When was this? Friday, I guess it was Friday, right?
Yeah, it was Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I think it was even before after we made that Polanco deal. I was texting you, and I think I said something like, yeah, I feel like there's some type of coordination going on here, and they're just going to wait till the last second to veto it because, it had been way too quiet on the message boards. Drew had made a post that morning about a veto, and nobody said anything. And knowing this league, that's just not how things work. That's not how things fly. So I wasn't sure. I actually didn't. I was just specifically ignoring my phone that night because of all the texts that were coming through, and I didn't look at fantasy at all after like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever. It was obviously before the trade was vetoed. I got up the next morning, fully expecting it to get vetoed. It was. But and it wasn't. I mean, I was more upset at the fact that with the vetoing and the actual reversal of the trade, because the only excuses people were giving was, you can't let him have. He's got now have Cueto and Price and Strasburg.
Yeah, okay.
That's not fair. Like nobody was going to give me a valid excuse.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point, because that was the point that made me the most upset. Is just because Brandon vetoed it and gave his reason. I don't know if it was maybe hopefully it was just a joke for his actual reason, but he said no team should have Price, Strasburg, and Cueto on the same team. That's to me that's a horrible reason. Doesn't.
That's a great excuse right there.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to know, because this seems to be, of all the players, Votto, it seems to be in a lot of deals. And people's perception of his value is anywhere from maybe a top 10 to, nowhere close to that. So I wanted to talk about that. I mean, what is Votto's value? And let's try to collaborate and agree on something.
Well, depending on the trade, and Votto can be anywhere from a top hitter to just an injury-prone throw-in player. So I don't know. That's nothing you asked.
As of yesterday, ranked 920 something in the last 7 days.
I love that stat that Drew threw out about Votto, which obviously is dumb in and of itself, but both Price and Strasburg were ranked like 200 something, and like Strasburg was ranked in the thousands for the year. So that's just a dumb stat, anyways.
Yeah, and obviously a week earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah, I traded George Springer, or I got George Springer trading away Votto, and I was crucified. Nick Evans.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They were riding you all about it, about how dumb it was, and how Votto's back. He's hitting for average, he's hitting for power, he's healthy. You're going to be a top player this year, and then he's included in that pitching deal. Armageddon's happening, hell's freezing over. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just wishy-washy, man.
What do you say about that, Ryan?
No, I completely agree. The fact that it seemed like Nick completely changed his viewpoint on Votto within a week's time didn't make any sense to me, because originally he was, I don't know if it was maybe more the fact that he just really hated Springer, although I'm not real sure why, even though he got off to a slow start. But he was praising Votto, saying things like he looks like he's back to his MVP self, and he's healthy, driving the ball, hitting home runs.
Actually, even sent a text out in the group message saying something about Votto one night after he hit a homer.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I really didn't even have, if I was the type of person that would veto trades because I thought that it was a little bit unfair, and once I was getting a much better deal or whatever, I don't think that would have even been one that I would have vetoed. I know
we need to jump into the rankings and get on, but before we do, I just want to say something real quick. Now, had the other two, had your trade with
Seth,
Brad and Seth, had they been vetoed, and then my trade was vetoed, I was like, okay, whatever, I guess, that's how this league is. But the fact that both those trades went through when mine was nowhere near as bad, no offense, that's what kind of upset me a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Got a little bit of that Robert Ory in him, like a little bit of that Robert Ory, like the, Robert Ory in basketball. He found.
No, but who's got Robert Ory?
Ryan O'Dell, he's got that in him, like.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
I don't know where you're going either.
Okay, remember when he did that foul in the play?
The hip check for Nash or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Robert Ory did that, but he didn't get the punishment. You see what I'm saying? That's Ryan every single year. Ryan takes advantage of food. Ryan sneakily does these deals. He's quiet, plays slow, and then the next trade is the one that gets the punishment.
So, there's no doubt that added to it, that fueled it with the Shields and the Rockies trade. But, I'm giving up actually players of value in that deal. Whereas Ryan, again, sorry Ryan, but Milkman and those other two players aren't exactly high on my player list. So it just kind of, it's upsetting. Like I said, it's upsetting that the trade got vetoed because the reasons it was vetoed, not necessarily the trade. Because I'd be fine to keep Votto, and I think Salazar and Ventura. I think Ventura's pitched the year, so I think Salazar. He was a big sleeper last year, and maybe he's finally breaking out. this year. I don't know. Long story short, I don't think the trade is near as bad as half the league thinks it is.
I did want to say one more thing before we went into power rankings, Ryan, is that there's a potential first blockbuster trade of the year, I'd say, that's on the blocks right now, and I'm actually standing by my facts and sheet for the duration of this call. The trade deadline for that is set at 45 past the hour, and if I get that fax, I'll get the first 3 points up.
Well, that's very interesting.
I also want to say that I guess I'm the only one that thinks this, but this Stanton trade was absolute garbage and was way worse than what they think my trade was. That's all I got to say about that.
That's funny that you think that, because it seems like a few, I know that Drew, I know you don't exactly value Drew's opinion, but he seemed to be a big fan of the Hamilton side of that trade.
Yeah, apparently Hamilton's untradeable to Drew, so if he was so good to Drew, I don't know why he didn't grab him on draft night, but I thought that trade was garbage when it happened. But some people actually, I guess, like Brad's side for whatever reason, but me personally, I thought it was absolutely terrible, but we can get into that later when we talk about Brad's team.
Yeah,
I want to see a trade between Boo and Seth, because they're easily the worst 2 traders in the league, and you got to wonder who's going to win between them 2.
Well, like you said about Votto, you got to find that manager that values one of your players a little higher than a bunch of the other managers, and I think that's what I tried to do, maybe with a couple of the trades that I've done. That Tehran and.
Let me go out on a limb here and say, if this trade goes through, I'll put Strasburg and Price out on the freaking trade list, and I'll bet you I'll get a bunch of just garbage after garbage offer.
Well, that's yeah.
People, they bitch about this trade being unfair, but yet half the league is sending absolute garbage for Pineda. So they think that's fair, but this one's not. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. The same thought that I have is that although. Yeah, I agree. I may have gotten a pretty good deal on the Tehran. It looks better after his start today, and after Guerrero apparently isn't playing every day. But I guarantee you that nobody was going after Tehran hard. He had an ERA that was like 5 at the time, and I bet you that he didn't get any offers for him anyway. So, Seth actually.
I can personally guarantee you that that's not the case.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize that I wouldn't have thought so since you traded him away.
I want to veto it, but the difference is, though, we're not talking about trades between, what I would call perennial playoff teams. It's the trades between scrubs that, rookies or perennial rookies like Boo, who,
All right, Brad made the finals a couple years ago. You don't forget that Brad had that little stretch where he made the finals in basketball, baseball, and football.
Boo must have a personal vendetta against me coming out. I was looking back at those texts from Friday night, whenever he just came right out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
That last veto, so he must have a personal thing against me.
Hey, I got a little fun fact for the league so far. There's 2 teams that haven't lost a matchup this year. One of them's Little Ben, the other is Big Boo. Just saying.
Brad beat me last week.
Oh, Brad beat you last week, so he's the only one?
Yeah, he had a monster week. That was obviously when he still had Stanton on his team.
That's just something to think about there.
That just goes to show, and I'm sure it'll reflect in the power rankings, that no matter what Boo starts at, he will fall.
All right, well, we're already running.
Anybody can win on any given week, so.
We're already running about 23 minutes into it. Haven't gotten to the power rankings yet. There's actually a total of 9 trades that went down. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I just want to get a couple thoughts on a couple of them. Ben, what did you think about the trade me and Jordan made, Starling Marte for Ryan Braun?
I thought it was fair. I know you were kind of regretting it after Braun hit those 2 home runs in the game and started going on a tear there.
It made me worried, that's for sure. I guess the main reason that I wanted to get rid of Braun is just the Brewers' start. I felt like if they could find an excuse to need to shut him down if he has a lingering injury, they've only got like 6 wins. I know it's super early, but that had me a little worried, I guess.
Yeah, I personally liked, even though I hate him in real life, after last year, I'd like Braun better in that deal just because I'm not as high on Marte as some other people seem to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think Braun obviously is going to contribute more categories. Marte is going to get you more steals, obviously, but I think Braun's just a well-rounded and better player than Marte is.
All right, Jordan, I'm going to ask you about another trade, one between me and Ben that just went through. Gregory Polanco for Carlos Carrasco.
I don't even know who either of those players are.
I was afraid of that.
I know the trade, didn't look at it. I guess they exclude me on that one.
All right, we'll just go ahead and move on then. How about, and Ben, I saw you reference this one earlier, and I didn't really even pay attention that much to it, but Jeff Samardzija and Alex Gordon went over to Michael's team, and Brandon got back Will Myers and John Lackey.
Yeah, I just look at it as for Myers for Samardzija straight up. I thought it was a fair trade. I personally wouldn't have done it if I was Michael, just because I'm not a big Samardzija guy like a bunch of people are, and I was actually pretty hot for Myers, but I mean, I thought it was fair. I just personally wouldn't have done it. I would have tried to get maybe a better picture or something. I know it's only been a month, and Myers hasn't exactly been a model of consistency in the past, but yeah, like I said, fair trade, but I just personally wouldn't have done it.
Initially, when I saw it, I thought that Michael was getting a great deal, but I really have been sleeping on how hot of a start that Will Myers has gotten off to. I didn't realize he's like a top 20 player so far, and obviously he was a big-time prospect, and he hasn't really lived up to it, but he's off to a hot start, so that makes you wonder if he's going to be able to keep it up. But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can maintain it for a full season.
I still think I'd take Michael's side if I had to choose, but I thought it was a fair trade, like you said. And we'll just do, I guess, one last trade, and this is one that Ben, you made, so I'm just going to get your thoughts on it in fear that Jordan might not know who the players are. So Jimmy Nelson, Drew Smiley, and Shane Green for Steven Souza, Salazar, and A.J. Burnett. Just tell me kind of what you were trying to do in that deal.
Well, I've been trying to get Souza from John ever since, like, the first week, and he made some reference on the podcast, I think we've won, about how I've been sending him garbage trade offers. Every single offer was for Souza, and they're all fair trades. But he was treating him like Mike Trout, so I was like, well, screw it. I finally was able to get something through, and Souza's just been ice cold since I got him, so we'll see if he stays on the team the next week or so. But yeah, I like how the trade turned out. I'm pretty high on Salazar, and I was able to get, Nelson and Green off my team both that just imploded after their strong start, so tough to get those guys off the team. I did have to give up Smiley. I think he'll be pretty good, but yeah, obviously I like my side a little bit better.
I guess what I like about what you did there is it seems like while it wasn't an A+ trade or anything like that, I think it was an improvement, and it allowed you to turn some of those pieces into another trade that you wanted to get done. So always look to upgrade your roster. You can eventually sometimes turn some garbage into gold. I think one year, what was that trade that Drew did in basketball a few years back, where he turned some scrub into like an all-star?
It was like, oh man, I don't remember. It was like trade, and 4 trades later he turned.
Yeah.
I can't remember the particulars, but I remember what you're talking about, what you're referring to.
Right. All right, well, let's just go ahead and jump into the power rankings. At number 12, no change from that. We still got Seth, the Right Reverend, at number 12. Do you think that is fair for Seth's team?
This one. Yeah, I think it's fair, only considering the actual manager, because of him seemingly trying to just make awful moves that aren't going to work. But last week he did this, and I'm looking at his team, and I love his offense. To be honest with you, I think that he's got a lot of potential. I think he's got good players in places that are hard to find good players. And again, he might end up just trading that away eventually, but usually, the season drags out. You can put, players into utility spots and outfield spots, but it's, for position players are a little bit harder. And I see Robinson, Josh Donaldson. Those are the number 1 players at second and third base, respectively. He's got Kemp in the outfield. I already told you, kind of spoiled the love on my love for Simeon. And, his pitchers, they look good to me too. He's got some depth. So I think that we might be underrating him, even though it is clear to me that he will dump his tragic.
Yeah, I think Samayan has been on. He's already been on like 3 or 4 teams, and we're a month into the season, so he's obviously been
Samayan.
But yeah. Yeah, no, Jordan's right. I think he's definitely got one of the better offenses in the league. After the Vago trade goes through, we'll have probably without a doubt the best infield in the league. And his pitching staff, I know he just traded me away Price and Strasburg, but if he had just kept Teran, then he'd have Teran, Salazar, Ventura, Arrieta has been pretty solid, so it's not terrible. I'd actually say it's probably one of the better pitching staffs in the league, so even after those 2 guys he gave up.
And he's got 3 closers now.
It's still one of the top 6.
Yeah, so now he's got 3 closers. I pretty much just gave away Axford because I had to clear a roster spot.
I don't know why. Yeah, I know I had 7 closers one year, but they were all pickups. It actually didn't end up hurting me at all. But I don't know why Seth is so willing to trade away things just for strictly a closer. He obviously, I think he's just, I don't know if it's first year playing fantasy. Obviously, his first year with us, but I think he's just learning as he goes, learning on the fly, kind of. So I don't know. And it's not like two closers. I guess he's got three now. But I mean, it's not like two closers is necessarily that big of an advantage, but I guess three maybe it is.
All right, I'm going to just go ahead and move on to the number 11 team. At number 11, and by the way, I guess we should mention that Seth did win 6-4 this week over Brandon. So, even the worst team in the power rankings can sneak out a win. This is a pretty balanced league. At number 11 in the power rankings, I've got Eric, Uncle E. So the middle shim at number 11. He's dead last in the actual standings. What do you think about Eric's team so far?
I would have put Seth above Eric. I don't know. I look at this team and I don't know. I just don't see a lot to like about it, honestly.
Yeah, actually, I'm on Ben's side on this. I think that I would make a contention that this should be our number 12 in actual rank and in projected rank. I don't see much to like at all. I mean, his best O-ranked offensive player that's healthy right now, found on the DL, is Jacoby Ellsbury, if that tells you.
Is he hurt again, Ellsbury?
No, he's healthy.
He's the highest.
Oh, you said not on the DL. Oh, okay, I thought on the DL.
Yeah, his league is on the DL.
Yeah, let me ask you this: Ryan? Who do you think? Who would you say is his best hitter?
I guess I would agree with Jordan and go with Ellsbury. So I'm looking at this team again, and I guess the reason I put him a spot ahead of Seth is because I like his staff better. But you're definitely right that his lineup doesn't hold up to what Seth has.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see a lot to like about this team personally, just me personally. And I don't know if Eric's.
Well, I should point out that
I guess he made a trade with Nick, but I don't know if he seems like he doesn't really care that much, which is fine, to each his own. But I just don't see him trying to shake things up and make trades or anything like that. And even if he does, I'm not sure that he really has the trade pieces to swing. Obviously he's got Harvey, who's great, but
yeah. So
outside of that, I guess you got Kluber. I know I'm probably mispronouncing that. But other than he hasn't even been that good so far. But other than that, it's not a terrible team. Like I don't think there's one. Well, we'll get to that later, but I don't think there's a huge gap between the teams. But it's just like I said, just to repeat myself, not too thrilled about that team.
Now I should mention that I forgot that he has Yasiel Puig on the DL. He should be back pretty soon. Although I like Puig, but I just don't really view him as a top 20 player or anything like that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the number 10 team since we're running deep on time already. At number 10, I've got Brandon, Burt Macklin, and another Shimmer brother back-to-back. So, Brandon lost.
Man, the Shins are just falling in the power ranking.
I started them off pretty high.
Have you thought about that? I mean, you got Drew's little brother and both the little brother Shims. I mean, maybe this experience and age has something to do with it.
Well, Burt Macklin.
I actually like Brandon's offense quite a bit. I think it's pretty good. His pitching is just not very good. I'll say that.
To say the least.
Zimmerman, and then I guess his second best pitcher is the Asian guy on the Orioles. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I think it's the worst staff in the league.
He's over the Chin chain is definitely overachieving, but the staff's very, very questionable. But I think the offense is one of the better in the league, but the pitching is just. I just don't see it. I don't see it holding up. Well, it's not even holding up. I just don't see it. It's very good.
No, I agree with most of what you said there. Offensively, he's got a lot to like. I mean, like you said, Zimmerman is I would prefer him to be my number 2 or number 3, and then he doesn't really have any other pitcher that I would even consider a top 50 starter after that. So pitching staff, I don't like it.
It's so much different than every other year we've ever played because there's no team that just. Maybe this is because they're at the bottom.
There's no runaway. Every team's got flaws.
Yeah, big flaws. I mean, nobody has a complete pitching staff. There's not a single team that, from top to bottom, I could say, yeah, that's a good pitching staff. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Well, so I know that last week I think I had Brandon at like 4th or something like that. I think I was riding too high after he had a good showing against Drew, and then I took a closer look at the roster and realized that it wasn't probably as good as I had been giving it credit for. So I know it probably seems like a steep decline down to number 10, but I think I overvalued his team last week.
It'll be interesting to see if Devin Travis ends up, keeping up the pace he's at. If he's the real deal or if it's just kind of a strong start, it'll be interesting to see if he can do this for a full season.
Definitely. And you know what I like about what Travis did this week is you look at the 200 average, but even with the 200 average, he still had 7 runs, 7 RBIs, and 2 homers. And I know he had a grand slam, but it's awesome when you get production from players like that aren't even hitting for a high average each week. So
yeah, it's crazy because anytime there's some new guy that starts showing power, I look him up and this guy's only 5'9", and he's already got 6 or 7 bombs, which I know that doesn't necessarily equal power as height, but he's 5'9", 190, so he's not even big, and he's already bringing the ball.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a Gene Segura thing from a couple years ago. He started off the year with 10 homers in the first half of the year and I think he only hit 1 for the second half of the year. I think Travis has got a little bit more power than Segura, but I wonder if it's going to be one of those hot starts and then he falls off after a couple months. All right, at number 9 in the power rankings, I've got Gardenhoser, Derek. And again, Derek is really putting up some very, very disappointing offensive numbers, but the reason I'm moving him up a little bit is because his pitching really had a strong week this week. So he tied this week 5-5. He's going to be getting Rendon back fairly soon, it sounds like, and Chris Bryant has been solid for him so far, I guess. So, what do you think about Gardenhoser at number 9?
I tell you, I was shocked when somebody put money on Chris Carter on the waiver wire and picked him up. But actually, I honestly don't know if he's been good since Derek acquired him or not. But it was just shocking to me to see somebody actually bid on Chris Carter.
He hit a couple home runs this week, and they were actually the only 2 home runs for Derek's entire team this week. So good thing you did pick him up, I guess, at least for the look of the stat line.
I'm not sure why. I mean, I know why he did, I guess, this past week, because Holland was on the DL or whatever, but hasn't he had Wade Davis since the draft?
Wade Davis has been filling in at closer for Greg Holland since he's been out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know he had him this week or whenever Holland got injured, but didn't Derek draft Wade Davis?
You're right about that. He did draft him, and it was funny because I looked at him a few days ago. Wade Davis is the number 1 relief pitcher that's not a relief and starter eligible. The number 1 closer in all of fantasy at the point. So.
Yeah, he was something like that last year. He was one of the top-ranked relief pitchers, even though he wasn't a closer either. I guess his ratios are so good.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not in love with Gardenhoser as much as you guys are, I guess. I think that his pitching numbers, and this is starting to get, might be a little early, but, I'm starting to look at the team stats and that page. And he's got one of the worst whips in the league. He's got one of the worst strikeout rates in the league. And those are 2 that are they're the more consistent of the pitching stats, right? It's whip and strikeouts.
I agree with that.
And he is in the bottom half on both of those right now. And his batting is abysmal all the way through. He doesn't have any single category that is above 10th place in the league right now. So
wow,
it's really bad. Yeah,
I do. I don't think it's quite as bad as you're making it out to be. I do worry about. It is kind of an eyesore seeing Bogarts and that Rocky second baseman in the lineup. But if Rendon can actually ever make it back and be the player he's supposed to be, Derek can slide him into second, and then Chris Bryant can go to third. Which I'm not sure why he's not there right now, anyways. Actually, why does he have Bogarts at third when he has Chris Bryant?
Yeah, I don't know. I would be dropping Bogarts for somebody on the waiver wire if it was me.
I say that. I'm not playing him next week.
Edit. Yeah, but
if Rendon can come back, whatever can come back, be good at second, and then Bryant can start. Eventually he's going to start swatting homers.
Yeah.
I think his infield will be pretty good. Edwin Encarnacion, if he can come around or not, I guess that's kind of depending on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid team. I think it's what is it? What are we at? 8.
This is 9.
Yeah, I think that's about right where he should be. 8 or 9.
Yeah, Alex Wood's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. I think, I don't think he's going to be quite as good as he was last year, but I think he's going to be better than he has been. And Garrett Cole looks like he's primed for a breakout. He's pitched like a top 10 pitcher so far this year, and I wouldn't be shocked if he kept that up. He was the number 1 overall pick a few years back. So this might be his breakout year. Let's move on to number 8. At number 8, and this is a team that we all ragged on draft night, and he's slowly been moving his way on up. John, the Ghost of Harry Doyle, number 8. Interesting comment from.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm trying to figure out where Jordan's going with interesting. Does he disagree with that?
I don't think I do. I mean, I think that I think I do agree with that. I think that this is the first team of everything that every team we've talked to that I see real balance. There's some strengths in some areas, but this one is the one that belongs in the discussion of can you make a playoff. The other teams, every single other team we've looked at, I don't see it.
How about Evan Gaddis this week? I mean, the ice cold start in April, and this week comes out, hits 5 homers and 12 RBI. That's got to be great for John. And Ben, I specifically want to ask you about one of his players because I had this guy in my eye on the waiver wire, and I'm sure that you're kicking yourself for not adding him. Jake Marisnick. He's Jake Marisnick, Astros outfielder. He's a top 20 overall player right now. He's got, I think, like 9 or 10 steals and 4 or 5 home runs.
Oh, really? I guess I don't know him. I mean, no. Yeah, I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Yeah, 15 on the year. 13.
Oh, here he is. Oh, well, it looks like he had a pretty big, not big, but a pretty solid week.
Yeah, he's interesting to me. And I wasn't really, the Astros have had a lot of, big prospect type guys come through the system, and most of them seem to flame out. Guys like John Singleton last year, but
it seems like all the Astros are just swiping back like crazy.
Yeah, well, I was going to say with him, as of Saturday, Springer, Marisnick, and Altuve, each of those were in a 3-way tie for first place in steals in the American League on Saturday.
They get a new freaking manager this year or something, just running down everyone's throat, or what?
They do have a new manager. I don't know if, how much that has to do with it, but yeah, they do.
9-game win streak as of today, too.
The Astros, believe it or not, since we're talking about them, Ben, they have the best record in the American League right now and the second best in all of baseball.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something about John's team that I don't like, and that's the man puts himself, Carlos Gonzalez. This guy just, I don't know if he's going to come around or not. I mean, I don't know what this guy's deal is. Last year, I
feel like Ben's trying to trade for him.
Absolutely not.
Certainly the way he's saying that.
No, absolutely not. Look, I'm not taking. I know I got through praising Braun for that Marte Braun trade, but I don't want either Braun or Carlos on my team after last year and the debacle that I had to go through with them all year. I just don't know if Carlos Gonzalez is ever going to be the player that he was again.
Yeah, 2010, the number 1 overall player. He just has been injury prone and just not that productive the last couple of years when he is healthy. So with him and Hayward, you just scream potential there, but both of them just seem to be consistent underperformers the last few years.
And Cargo is somebody, he's obviously can't just cut him, but nobody's going to trade for it. The one thing I've learned about this league, and I mean I'm the same way, is it's impossible to trade against Cole. I think Ryan's probably one of the only people that can somehow look past a cold start, but most people, and especially me, are all about, what have you done for me lately? So it's just going to be, I think, tough to trade Cargo even if John's trying, which I doubt he is, because obviously I don't think he's going to.
See, that's, and not that I'm trying to trade for Cargo, but I feel like that'd be one of those things where say that I trade, I don't know, say that I was able to trade Kadire for him or something like that. I feel like everybody would flip out.
And veto it,
yeah.
Would.
Although that nobody wants him. That's just one of those examples, but oh well.
Yeah, it was the same thing with Lucas effing Duda, how somehow he was, oh my gosh, it's bad. You're giving him Lucas Duda. That's just breaking it over the top. And I guarantee you not one person can on a trade for Lucas freaking Duda.
Right. All right, well, I think his staff has gotten, not that it's great, but I think it's gotten a little bit better. He's got a little bit better depth, I guess, than he did a couple weeks ago. When he started the season, I think he only had like 5 starting pitchers on his whole roster. So that situation looks a little bit better. And maybe if Ryu comes back pretty soon and Alvarez, that only makes it a little bit deeper for him.
I like Seth and Derek's team better than this team.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's fair.
So we're starting to disagree. I like that.
I do too. All right, so let's move it up into number 7. Number 7, a team that nobody seems to give the respect that maybe he actually does deserve because he's undefeated if you look on a week-by-week basis, but I still have Brad down at number 7.
Oh, that's extremely, extremely too high.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
He was tied for second going into this week, and this week he won 5-4 over John, which I know you didn't really think a lot about John's team.
You guys are right. I'm being unfair. Let's go back and look at that trade he made with for Mike Stanton. I mean, Stanton's not that good, so he trades him for Billy Hamilton. Let's check out his line for the week. You got 2 runs. Oh wow, homer, shocking. A whole RBI and a solid 1.43 batting average. So anytime you got to get a player like that who's untradeable, you got to do it. But I'm really not being fair because we also got DeGrom in there, so we got to factor DeGrom in too. Let's look at his stat line of DeGrom. Oh, 4 strikeouts. Man, 5.06 ERA. That's borderline dominant. But I mean, that's just a little better. 1.31 WHIP. So anytime you got to trade 10 for those two guys, I mean, you got to make that deal.
I'm not as harsh on Brad about that trade as you are. Obviously, I think that Brad, what his problem has been the last 2 or 3 years, is that he's always had a lot of top level talent. He's had Miguel Cabrera on a lot of these teams, and obviously he's been awesome. But his problem has always been depth, I guess, and he was able to clear out a few scrubs from his lineup. And I think one thing that's easy to overlook with Brad's team, and I've been doing it the last couple of weeks, is I had totally forgotten that he has Carlos Gomez on his team, who's a top 10 overall player.
Apparently wasn't good enough to get the start for Brad yesterday.
Yes, I did notice that. He texted me and he says, "Why do they always?"
That's why he's ranked. Let's be honest. It's why he's ranked 7 because he's got a very good team. He's put up very good numbers. If it was anybody but Boo, and we didn't have the knowledge that it was Boo, and that it's a long season, he's going to trade away his team. I mean, I feel like, I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan, when you're telling me that he has lack of depth, I feel like that's the sales pitch you must give him every time you get a better player or 2 of your players.
He had Alejandro De Aza on his team.
You know, like, his team is fine. The problem is he's going to trade it away, you know, and it's unfortunate, but it's a reality that he hits your feeder team and everybody knows it, and it's disgusting.
and I don't think his team is terrible or anything. I just think 7 is a little too high. All I'm saying is he could have got a legitimate ace for Stanton, but he chose DeGrom and Billy F. and Hamilton. I'm sorry. I'll quit talking about it, but I'll just never understand that trade.
See, that's just.
Billy Hamilton is untradeable.
Well, that's just the wide range of opinions on some players in the league, like Votto, and I think Billy Hamilton's another one of those guys. Is that some people view him?
I think Stanton's a clear-cut top five hitter, top 5 player.
Yeah.
I just it's absurd that he went for that low of a deal.
Yeah, I agree. When I would trade a guy of that value, I usually want somebody back near that return in addition to some other pieces, and maybe he could have gotten another top level player instead of settling for Hamilton. But I think he was really trying to go after steals, trying to make it.
Well, that's great. You want to go after steals? Why don't you have him think of like Ben Revere or something on the waiver wire? Pretty sure he's not that much worse than Hamilton, and he doesn't cost you anything.
Wow, man, he's pissed. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we should mention.
I don't want to keep doing because I just makes questionable decisions. I think 7 is a tad bit too high.
Okay. Well, Nelson Cruz. I got to bring up Cruz.
Manager of the league, definitely.
I got to bring up Nelson Cruz. He's hit 13 home runs already on the year. How do you view Nelson Cruz? And I know that maybe I shouldn't ask Ben that question because he never is real upfront and honest on these things. And I'm thinking that he's probably sent a few offers for him. So, Jordan, I'll just go straight to you. How do you view Nelson Cruz?
I think you've got to consider him the top 10 offensive player in the league now. I think that nobody's shown, well, he's demonstrated in the past, let's say this, the ability to have real power, top level elite power. And he's gotten off to as good of a start as anybody possibly could this year. So if he's got the ability, he's got a new team, sometimes that gives people a jolt. And, he could be arguably top 5 offensive player right now, if you have that type of perspective.
All right, let me ask you, I think this could be an interesting question to ask. Andrew McCutchen, off to an extremely slow start. There's a little concern over his knee and all that. Would you trade McCutchen for Cruz?
It sounds like Jordan's pretty high on Cruz.
Would I trade McCutchen for Cruz? Oh, man, that's tough. I mean, when
you know what?
look at categories, McCutchen brings in 2 more categories. He brings in steals and average. It's going to be more than Cruz. And so,
I think, let me say, first of all, you know what else gives somebody a boost, and that's sticking needles in their ass, because this guy, I don't know if did he ever hit 30 home runs in a season before he got to Baltimore last year?
No, he hadn't. He had a lot of injury-prone season, or riddled seasons.
So he goes from Texas, where he was definitely a good outfielder, definitely a serviceable fantasy player, and then he goes from not re-signing with Texas or whatever. Nobody freaking wanted him. He signed like that 1-year deal with Baltimore for next to nothing. So obviously, he's thinking like, I gotta enhance this. So he starts, doing roids, and now he's just cracking the freaking skin off the ball. So yeah, but I definitely want him on my team. He's also, I don't agree that he's top 10, but he's definitely somebody I would want on my team. Probably Brad's best player.
All right, Jordan, if I gave you a clock that said you have 15 seconds to accept this deal, and it was sitting there in front of you on the computer, what do you do?
I do it. And again, Ben, he's shown power. He's had a couple of years where he's hit around 30 home runs. And last year he had 40. So I'd pull the trigger. Sorry.
Interesting. All right, let's move it on to number 6 in the power rankings. At number 6, got him here on the line with me, Jordan. Return of Puckett 2. How do you feel about that? Disrespect, or are you okay with it?
I'm okay with it. I'm pretty low on my team, to be honest with you. I think I was outclassed this week.
Outclassed?
Let me cut you off right there. Let the outclass comment. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. Let's compliment the other team. It's not working. I'm not buying it.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, it's just, I'm just going to be honest with you. If I felt like I was in a position to talk a lot of trash, then I would do it. And I would have done it before the week started, I really didn't have much to say. I had a free category then, and even with that, I barely squeaked out full left.
Now, I tell you who was pissed. That's George Springer, man. I must have lit a fire under his ass. He absolutely lit me up this week.
Now, I will say I'm loving the news of George Springer. I love my potential. I love the potential of my team. I think I was the only team I looked at the beginning of the week. I was the only team who had 8 offensive players that were ranked on the season over 200, and that was far and away the worst. But I do that because I trade away all my good players. It's kind of my method. I'm all about deferred gratification. I'm all about getting the slow starters, the share types, buying over rank, buying high on potential. So, I keep deferring that, but eventually I've got to start producing. And, I'm hoping I can do that. And I've got guys who can do it. I've got McCutcheon, Springer, Braun in the outfield, but they have yet to get it started, even though it seems like Braun and Springer are certainly starting to heat up.
Jordan, I want to ask you
I think, that's why, and that's the reason why I thought our trade with Bono was more than fair, because I think Springer, I don't think his average is ever going to be good because he strikes out so much, but if he can hit around 250, 260, I think he's going to be, he can potentially be a beast in all other 4 categories, so, yeah, he's got tremendous upside.
I think Jordan, I was talking to Jordan over the week after that trade went through, because he got a lot of flack for it. I'm not sure what's going on back there, but anyway.
Yeah, I've got my wife and my daughter trying to actively torture me right now.
Okay, I got you. Hey, we're on live radio right now.
Star, do you want to say something to the guys? Experts, what do you want to say? Even my daughter respects Little Ben and his team. Even though I will beat you in the playoffs, Ben, if I get there.
See, this is the only kind of content we would get if we had Jordan on the phone. Nobody else provides this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is good stuff, right?
And this is getting the ratings up.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute my phone and I'll be back in just a second.
Okay, well, I guess that will. I was actually going to ask Jordan a question, so that's not going to work right now. I was just going to say with Ben and that Votto and Springer trade is that Jordan called me, I guess a couple days after that trade went through, and I was telling him that I didn't really get why everybody was so against that trade for him. Is that I feel like everybody in this league is so reactionary, and they're forgetting that Springer hit 20 home runs in half a season last year, and everybody knew that he. Yeah.
I was extremely high on Springer going into the draft. I wanted him pretty bad.
Yeah.
I ended up paying like $7. I don't know if that was his projected or maybe. No, I think it was a couple of dollars over. But I was extremely high on him in the draft. But just his average was, he was just draining my team, and I had to trade him. But he definitely took off since I traded him. He had 5 steals on me this week. He hit like 270. Had a couple homers and did pretty good in runs and RBI. So he's starting to pick the pace up.
He's going to be your classic streaky guy.
He's one of those guys. Let me come in. I have to definitely say that I've got, I told you, I've got that Southwest Sports or something, and I get to see every single Houston game, and I love watching them bat. One of those guys that I'm like, okay, this guy can do it. You know, I mean,
he had a sweet catch earlier this season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I was on fantasy earlier the week, and I think I was up on steals by 1 or 2 steals. I go to bed, I wake up the next morning and check the page, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look, and Springer had freaking 3 steals in one game.
Yeah, and one of them was home. And you know, the guys that steal home, you just feel so much better about your life. And that's Brian and a steal. And it was Ben's player that he traded away. It was beautiful.
I wish you could make stealing home kind of like kind of 2, and stealing third is like 1.5 or something like that, just because it's harder generally. Random thought, but anyway. All right, at number 5 in the power rankings, and I guess we're unveiling that we've got a new number 1 team this week because I've moved Drew all the way down to number 5 from his top spot.
Man.
So it's a steep drop for Drew. I will say that Teixeira did home run tonight, so that got him another category, I believe, against Michael, because he also had that home run from Blackman. So he's weathering the storm a little bit, but I've got Drew down to number 5, partially because of the Tanaka injury, and you know, I'm a little worried about his staff outside of that big top 4.
Yeah, I will say one thing. Drew whines everything. I feel like every single week we get a text from Drew about how this isn't fair. My opponent's doing so good. I want to beat this team. I feel like he complains and makes excuses every week if he loses.
Oh, he definitely does, and I'll also point out that when he complains, he never points out the other part of the story, and the fact that Michael has a 4.55 ERA, a 1.43 WHIP. He only points out what the other team is doing well in.
Yeah, that's classic Pepe. You know, he's a scrub. He's a bitch. I'm sorry, that's true. You know, it's just what it is.
Because Drew's also going to win ERA and WHIP with a ERA over 4 and a 1.35 WHIP. Usually, you're not going to win those categories, those numbers too. So it's kind of, you know, makes you a little bit okay with him losing some of those hitting categories when they're not especially great. Actually, I guess he's losing those, but he could have. I got those numbers a little backwards, but Michael did not put up ERA and WHIP numbers that were worthy of winning, and Drew should have not been complaining so much as he was.
Yeah, now in terms of defense, I will say that I do think he still has a top team. I think he still has definitely one of the best pitching staffs in the league. And I personally wasn't counting on Tanaka making it through the full season anyway, so I wasn't shocked at all when that happened. I know it's not supposed to be related to his other injury, but even so, I still think he's got a solid staff. I am really hoping that Weaver is still on there in week 9 when he plays.
Yeah, I think number 5 is maybe low. I think that that's kind of a rough drop. I mean, we all root against him. Don't get me wrong, but I think that he's got a strong team.
I will wonder if because essentially because he picked the Tances back up or whatever. I wonder if it will eventually come down to haunt him that he essentially dropped Kipnis for Mark Teixeira. And you know, for all we know, Kipnis will just play him back out, fizzle back out, and I just don't see Teixeira keeping up the pace for a full season. That guy sucked for the past 3 or 4 years, so I wonder if that's going to come back and haunt him. But I still didn't get that he has probably a top 3 team.
Now, I guess I'll kind of explain my rationale because it sounds like y'all don't agree with me. Obviously, I really like his top 4: Kershaw, Greinke, Hamels, and Ross. And with Tanaka injured, you know, I look and I say, who's his 5th best starter? And I guess it's a toss-up between guys like Jonathan Neeson, Bartolo Colon. And I remember when Drew had that team a couple years back where he had a dominant front half of the rotation, and yet he was still like 9th in the league in ERA and WHIP because the back half of his rotation was so undependable. I feel that it's not quite that bad yet, but I think it's getting close to that. And I feel like his hitting is about reached its potential. I mean, it's been amazing to start the year, and I don't think it's going to get better from here on out.
No, yeah, and that's a good point. I do think, that he's definitely, after the top 3 or 4 pitchers he had, there's a huge drop-off, and there's some of those guys who probably won't be on the team half the year. But, I mean, that's still, his staff is still better than what you can say for almost every other team in the league pitching-wise. And I will agree with you about his offense. I think they're definitely overachieving. I don't think they're terrible or anything, but I don't see them putting up the kind of numbers that they did this week on a consistent basis. I'm much more worried about his hitting than his pitching.
So why is his second baseman? I didn't realize it was Josh Harrison. I mean, who was that?
Oh, he's the guy he chose over. He's the guy that he chose over Jason Kipnis.
That's what I'm saying. Now this isn't last week's stats. This is season stats of 937. So why would you choose him over Kipnis? What's the point?
Well, I mean, what's his ranking the past 7 days? That's what.
Let's go for that.
Okay, I see. Never mind.
Wait,
okay,
1,561.
I guess that's not too bad. That's higher than 900 something. So I guess you can keep him.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I would have thought, I didn't realize this, I would have thought if you dropped Kipnis, he had a better option. And he clearly doesn't. That's definitely, I know, I know that's probably eating away at Drew right now. It's just that Kipnis trade or that Kipnis drop. Kipnis has done that to many a manager, though.
All right, let's move it on.
Yeah, like I said, I still think Drew's got a pretty good team, and I hope he's still competitive when I play in Week 9, and hopefully I'm still competitive too.
So good job with the Weaver pickup and the Kipnis drop.
I think those would be the top 2 scrub moves of the week. I guess Weaver was technically last week or a couple weeks ago. I don't know. But, Drew would never give himself that honor, but I think that's what the rest of the league would go with.
Definitely.
Although some people might argue one of those trades, but we'll ignore that for now. All right, let's move it on to number 4. Number 4 in the power rankings, I've got Big Mike. He beat Drew this week. That matchup is still ongoing. It's 6-3 as it stands right now. And steals are tied up, and home runs he's down by 1. They've each got players going tonight, so that could change. But Mike put up some really impressive offensive numbers, as Drew pointed out often this week. And I think the thing that I wanted to point out about Michael's team is I had really been kind of sleeping on what Moustakas and Reddick have been doing early on in the year. And this lineup is looking a lot better than it did, or at least what I realized a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think Michael's got the opposite of Drew. He's got really good hitting, and the pitching is, outside of Scherzer and Fister, obviously, that pitching's kind of dangerous. I mean, and as in a scary. Like I don't have faith in him.
I agree.
And obviously, his offense is one of the best in the league, but that pitching just it definitely worries me.
The thing that I thought was interesting about the pitching staff is, he's going with a similar strategy as what you've got, Ben, no closers, and yet he is still racking up really low strikeout totals. I mean, he lost to Drew. I know Drew streamed a couple guys or whatever, but, I mean, he's got a lot of guys that don't get strikeouts, and when you're going with a no closer strategy, you've got to win strikeouts.
Yeah,
well, I agree. It's important, with both Ben and Mike, they've got two of the best offenses today in the league. I would say that those top 3, just looking at these stats, and that's important because what you're doing when you're selling out like that is you need to have a great offense, and both of these teams seem to have an offense that can carry them, and it does give you the ability to kind of plug in pitchers, just mass produce them. And nobody can find pitchers on the waiver wire better than Mike.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of the reason I liked what he did this year in the draft. He's normally a guy that gets a lot of good, solid players, but doesn't really reach for those top 10, top 15 level players. But he's good at working the waiver wire. I think you have to know your strengths. If you're good at finding those players, then take the high-level players and trust yourself that you're going to fill out the rest of your roster.
So here's an interesting stat. Mike is undefeated in runs, home runs, and RBI this year, 4-0 on all of them.
I think it's just crazy how hot Reddick's been right now. I don't think he's ever hit for average, but he's been just on absolute tear since he came back from the DL or wherever he was earlier in the season.
Yeah, he had a big year maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I kind of had written him off since he had been quiet, but he's on fire.
He's got a lot.
I mean, he did. I want to say Jordan had him a few years ago when he had him, but I'm pretty sure he didn't hit very well. I'm pretty sure his average was like 250 or something.
No, he could go through, seasons are a long time, but he could go through a month and have above 300 average. Now, that will go down. But he's a streaky hitter. He's one of those types of hitters, and I do know because I had him. And, he might fizzle out, but when he's hot, he's got every category ability.
And it's so, and I'm one of the worst, too. It's so hard not to be reactionary with what a player does for a month, especially when the season starts, in half a year, half a season, half these players are going to be sucking. There's going to be another group of players that are going to be, on fire. So it's tough not to look at what people are currently doing.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I think 3's probably about. Or are we at 3? Is that what this is?
I've got him at number 4.
4. I think that's about right. 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's a very deep lineup.
But I mean, wait, so Drew is 5, Michael's 4, so that means 1, 2, and 3. I'm trying to think who's left besides me and you. Who else is in there?
Number 3, might as well just jump right into it. Number 3, Nick Shimmer.
Oh, Nick, yeah.
So Nick and me, right?
I want to say something about Nick. I feel like every season, when baseball starts, I look at a team and I'm like, oh, I don't really like it as much as everyone else. But every season, he's always in the top of the rankings and always competes and always has one of the better teams. So, I mean, what do I know?
I really like his outfield. Brantley is a guy that I didn't trust necessarily as being as good as he was last year, but he had a really strong week, so it makes me believe that maybe that was for real. Adam Jones is hitting like 400, and I know he didn't really have a huge week, but Adam Jones and Brantley, and then he's got Calhoun and Betts for outfield. I love his lineup. I think his lineup is, I don't know. Do you like it more or less than what Michael's got? It's pretty close to me.
I'd have to let me pull it up. I do think I want to say
last. I see guys like Alex Rodriguez. That's fake, man. I mean, he might be his from now. I watched it. This is again the eye test or whatever, but he looks like a 50-year-old man running the first base, even after he hits. You know, it's like you think that he might hurt something just jogging the first base. So, like, you know, I don't see that being sustainable. I mean, I could be wrong, but, you know, it's a long season, and, you know, A-Rod looks like an old man.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he finished the season in one piece without a couple of DL stints.
What?
I think Mike's offense is better, but I think Nick's pitching staff is definitely a lot better. I don't think it's as bad as you guys are making it out last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. He's got some pretty solid pitchers in there, and actually, more than solid, he's got some really good pitchers in there so far. And Casimir and Archer, they've both been really good.
Yeah.
And then Waka, I'm sorry, Jordan, but Waka's been pretty good too this year.
I want to jump in there real quick.
He paid me for Waka. He paid the price for him, and I have to agree that his pitching has been very good. He's probably the best, most consistent top to bottom. You know, pitching is one of those things you can't have two good pitchers. It doesn't do you any good. You have to have your pitching's only as good as your worst pitcher.
Yeah, I agree with that. You can't just be top heavy. You have two good pitchers and a bunch of scrubs because you're not going to help you.
And so, you know, Novak has done a great job of making sure that, you know, he's got a decent pitching staff all the way throughout. And maybe has the best pitching staff in total, if that's considered.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder when Iwakuma, you know, I wonder if he could be a huge difference maker if he comes back and is the pitcher that everybody, you know, that he's expected to be. That'll be a huge boost for Nick's staff. You know, that's pretty scary right there. A healthy Iwakuma, Waka, Casimir, and Archer. You know, that's a damn good top 4 rotation right there.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in real quick. Is that I did not say anything about that staff. That was purely John and Drew. I was just sitting there quietly as they tore apart his staff. It is a little bit better now than it was. He made a trade to get Waka, and I know Bauer had a really rough week, but I think he's still going to be solid, even though it sounds like Nick is ready to already move on. But you know, I wouldn't react too much.
He has one of the top 5 staffs in the league. I don't think he's too close.
I think it's got a pretty solid staff. I'd say maybe middle of the pack staff. I'm not quite as high as you guys are on it, but I think he's got one of the top 3 or 4 offenses also. So it's a very balanced team.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's giving away any categories going into a week.
Balanced is fair.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys about is Nick sent a text over to me, and I just wanted to see if I'm the only one that thought he was crazy. He said that he thinks Addison Russell is going to have a better year than Chris Bryant.
Yeah, I think that's crazy.
Okay, just making sure.
No, I mean, you know, in Nick's defense, he knows a lot more about baseball, and I'm sure he's probably more up to with the prospects, but there's no way I don't see that happening.
I would be shocked if I know Addison Russell is a top 5 prospect also, but he's also a lot younger. I think he's 20 or 21 years old, where Bryant's, he's already made. He's like 24 or 25. He's been, he seems like he's as ready as any prospect has been to produce immediately in a while. So I'd be shocked if Addison outproduces him.
Real quick before we move on, mention what's up with Rizzo getting all these steals? Doesn't he have like 4 steals on the year?
He's got 5 steals. He got caught stealing another time. So yeah.
6. I'm looking.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Do you think he could get like 18 steals this year?
That's huge.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but it's interesting. All right, so at number
that you pulled out, 18, by the way.
I'd like to see the average age of the Cubs. All these young guys, they've got to have one of the youngest teams in baseball, if not the youngest.
Yeah, they definitely got a young team but a bright future. I hate to say it, but they do. At number 2 in the power ranking, so I guess this reveals who is going to be the number 1 overall team. At number 2, I got myself. Number 2, Slender Man. I'm not giving myself the curse of one.
You tell me that, I'm being humble and shit. Brian always says this. He's fucking scared of calling himself number 1. You know that he tells me.
Hey, I was a preseason ranked number 1 team.
You know that he's going to tell Missy tonight, hey, I'm number 1. I just want to let you know, because I don't let them know, because everybody I name number 1 ends up falling to, last.
I'm not going to toot Ryan Torn, but you may believe that you may be right. I'm not going to toot Ryan Torn, but it's pretty crazy that he was in last place and all of a sudden it's back up to second place.
I have to send out a thank you card to Eric Schimmer for that one.
I guess if you win 10-0, that'll happen, but his offense was kind of dormant that first week that he played me. They've definitely woken up since, and I say, but when freaking he loses Wainwright, which it should be a crushing blow, but he basically Shields and now Taylor on the cushion that blow, so it's almost like he didn't really lose anything. So yeah, I definitely think it's a top team for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's warranted. He's a top team. He's the only team in the league that has a minor league team to feed him. So that's just, it's got to be taken into consideration now.
I want to say, I feel like I haven't heard anything about Tulo. Looking at his stats, I think he's hitting like 300 and playing pretty decent, but I'm surprised that I haven't heard anything good or bad about him so far.
Yeah, he's just been hitting a lot of doubles. Nothing too exciting. I would definitely expect 5 home runs or so by now. He's only got a couple.
Yeah, I didn't realize Altuve is so good. So congratulations on that.
Hey,
I watch him every night.
I'll say that I did not either. I just took him. I never planned on drafting him, but when he went for way under what I thought he was going to go for, I drafted him. This guy's crazy. I mean, every time I watch him, he's getting multi-hit games. He's got 9 steals, 3 homers, a 371 average. He's got 19 RBIs. He's like 5'5", 160 pounds.
Yeah, he'll be on Boo's team soon. I can tell.
He leads my team in RBIs.
Yeah, that's another guy. I wonder if he'll be able to keep. Obviously, he's probably not going to be able to keep that pace up, in terms of the power numbers. But yeah, that's another guy. I didn't want any part of him on draft. Not because I thought he was going to be bad, but it's just tough for me to get a guy like that, especially in the infield, that doesn't hit for power. And Altuve, like you pointed out, just been tearing up in every freaking category so far this year.
Yeah, that's been I had no intention of drafting him. I never thought he would go for only 25, and I kind of drafted him almost not by accident, but I never really expected that to happen. I thought he'd be on Nick's team for sure.
Yeah, he went for like 24 or 20. He went for like $6 or $7 below his average. I was actually thought for sure Nick was going to draft him again.
Yeah, I did too. So he's off to a good start for me. He's been carrying my team this week. What do you guys think about my staff?
Well, I think we think about Shields and Tehran.
I think that your staff is kind of not like my offense. It's kind of like you've got some monsters there that have a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. And, the difference is batters can almost always turn around their season. Pitchers, if they start bad, sometimes they never turn it around in a season.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah, so, Tehran seems like, he might be able to turn that corner. But you've got the potential there, but I think the jury's largely still out on your staff. I don't want to make a judgment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Jered Richards is able to be the player he was last year. And then I want to say something about Jesse Chavez. I picked him up. I spot started this guy last week, and he did good, but I had to cut him because of Smiley getting activated off the DL, and you ended up scooping him back up off waivers. I was really upset, and then he went out and had a pretty bad outing, so I was a little relieved. But what do you think about Chavez? Do you think he'll be a serviceable pitcher for you, or do you think he's somebody who could be cut in a week?
No, I think he will be serviceable, but I will say that right now he's sitting at the last spot of my rotation. The way I've kind of got my guys ranked in order, obviously that's subject to change, but I think with I'm pretty excited about getting Carrasco, to be honest with you. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I think he's going to have a big year. I know he started off slow. I kind of agree with what Jordan said. I took a bunch of guys trying to buy low, and very high chance that not all those guys are going to bounce back. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully a couple of them return to what they did last year or so. All right, so let's move on to number one. Number one, Ben, welcome to the top. Probably long overdue. You've been number one in the standings for quite a while now. But Sean Sabian, welcome to number one.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been number one in baseball in your rankings. I think I'm one of the better teams, one of the best teams, but I think there's teams that are equally as good as I am. I don't think it's a runaway or anything. I will say that I just absolutely love Jock freaking Peterson. That guy's just awesome.
Jock Jams is sweet. He had a grand slam the other day.
Absolute beast.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I like my team, but yeah, I'm not gonna. You guys talk about it. I mean, because like I said, I'm gonna be humble. I honestly don't think it's the clearly number one team. I think there's 3 or 4 teams that could vie for the best team spot. So why don't you guys talk?
I think it's ironic that you were calling out Jordan for being passive aggressive, congratulating you on the win, and then when I know you number one, you're like, oh, it's no big deal. You're trying to avoid the curse of number one that happens to us all.
Let me make a comparison here, and I very strongly feel this way. So just let me insult you a little bit, then. This is the Phoenix Suns of fantasy baseball. This is built for regular season, and I can already see. Remember when Nick had that great year? He did the same strategy. I don't see. Ben's got a lean offense. He's got good players. He doesn't have a single person on the bench. He's got all of his pitching filled, and that is the formula for regular season success. And I honestly don't see that changing. He's going to be,
it's going to be one and done.
I think he's going to be in the top 2 in the league. The question is, what hasn't been able to happen for teams like this?
That's fair. I don't think I've ever won a playoff matchup in baseball.
Right. To be able to make that transition is not the easiest thing. And, it'd be interesting to see if this team might be able to do it.
Now, a lot of years Ben has really put aside baseball when football seasons come around, but I finally think that he's come to enjoy fantasy baseball more than fantasy football. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just feel like baseball,
it's a grind.
How grueling the damn season is. I mean, it's week 4? What is there, 20 weeks, 23 weeks or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just baseball is just so much. I feel like every year this league just gets more intense and more intense. And it's crazy how full throttle it is. How everybody gets so involved in it.
Yeah, your lineup has definitely been one of the top performing offenses so far. And how did Todd Frazier hit 115 and hit 3 home runs and get 2 steals? I don't know how he managed to do that. So Morales had a strong week. Your offense has been really good. I think you've got one of the best pitching staffs in the league. And how about that guy, Mike Fiers? That guy, I can't stand him.
I know that's good. It eaten away at you yesterday when he racked up 12 strikeouts.
Yeah, so Ben traded me. I gave him a couple starts. He gave up 3 grand slams in those 2 starts, so I cut him. And he pitches 6 innings, 12 Ks, and gets a win against the Cubs yesterday. So maybe I gave up on him too soon.
The one thing I will say, though, Ben, you're in the mid-season form right now. It's still early on.
You get bad to be early, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's early. It's too early to call. You could get an injury. And
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not like a runaway number one or anything.
Baseball can definitely, be cruel to you like that. It's a manager's game. It's a long season, and you don't have any bench players on reserve on your offense, so you're in your stride right now. You're striding really early. It's great, and you're going to be winning, I think, consistently. But it's like driving a Ferrari or something. It's really sexy on the road, but it could be in the garage. If one of these parts links up.
So you think I could be teetering out come September?
No. I just think that obviously if you don't have a single bench hitter, if a single player on your offense, buckles up, you're going to have to get a waiver wire pickup. Period. So, you know,
I like having the hitting roster as lean as possible. I actually don't like having pinch hitters ever, unless you're just somebody I absolutely want to have on my team.
well, and you know, you'll end up in the scenario where you'll have to determine if you can wait out with somebody on the DL or not. You know, so
And I guess we'll have to cross that bridge when I get there.
that's right. I started the season with 7 on my DL. That's week 1. I mean, it was so unfortunate. So, you know, I've already been there, and I'm lucky to be at 500.
How's Cliff Lee doing these days?
You know, if I had a DL spot, I'd still pick him up. He's definitely my favorite player in the league, next to King Felix, of course.
Ben, I wanted to ask you about a couple players on your team. Number 1, Charlton Heston. How do you feel about him?
Charlton has been sweet for me. Love that guy. Been awesome. I have no idea if he's even going to keep his rotation spot, but he's been all I can ask for and more so far. Been great.
And what about Dallas Keuchel? Would you trade Dallas Keuchel for Cole Hamels?
Dude, all right. Ryan, that's not a fair question. You know how I feel about Cole Hamels.
Ben, can I say something for our matchup? Because Carnes, who you dropped, who I told you I wanted, it did come back and steal away 2 categories. I mean,
he did have a good day against me, yeah. That's for sure.
Carnes is a guy that I wasn't. I definitely had him on my waiver wire. I know that he struggled out of the gate, but he's got a lot of strikeout potential. I thought, I was a little surprised that Jordan went ahead and picked him up. I was kind of in a wait and see approach, but it definitely worked out for him.
Yeah, against Baltimore too.
Yeah, I know. I thought for sure that he'd give up 3 or 4 runs against the Orioles since they've been so hot.
Yeah, 0 ERA today, boys.
Well, let's see. We are pushing an hour and 16 minutes. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Anything else you wanted to talk about that I didn't cover?
Yeah, so I want to say that I really like having 12 teams in the league. Both the 2 added, I guess it was 3 added this year since Adam. Anyways, John and Seth, I think, have been good additions. John's done more than I ever could have hoped for. You know, it's always dangerous getting a complete stranger and knowing if they're going to participate or not. But he's been great.
John's already made 5 trades.
You what?
He's already made 5 trades.
Yeah, not afraid to wheel and deal. Good commentary. He's been a great addition to the league. Seth, I'm sure. Others will feel different, but he at least makes comments here and there. Eric, it's not really fair to judge Eric since he's not in the group text.
Is it a coincidence that Seth and Boo were at the same concert?
But yeah, no, I really like going to 12 teams, and it's been fun so far. And it's good to have all people in the league.
Yeah, I just gotta say, you know, it's a long year. I'm excited about it. You know, I like Commissioner Nosak. I appreciate his hospitality at the draft. I hate playing because it completely consumes my time. I probably spend an hour and a half at least a day just not working and, you know, corralling the waiver wire, you know. So it sucks. I hate it. This is why I was a co-manager, because my life was way better. But I'm happy to be back and happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
All right, as we one final thing before we go, just put out a little announcement. What are you looking to trade for in case you want to get some things wheeling and dealing for your team?
You know, I've been trying to ship away McCutcheon for like a ace, you know, an ace starter and something potentially else in return. But haven't had much action on that. I've also that trade I said might come through on the fax machine. I did get that fax back. I sent a trade for Trout. I offered. I thought an irrefusable offer. I offered Sale and Ryan Braun for.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
But Michael didn't do that.
Yeah, no, it's a classic Michael trade, but it ended up he ended up rejecting it. So
it must be that start to Sale had, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that
Chris Sale is sweet.
As much as Michael acts like, you know, he likes these underdog working class people, I think that he's getting a taste of the fine wine of Mike Trout, you know, and he acts like he wants to trade him, and he doesn't. So.
Yeah, no, that's a surprising.
Ben, do you have anything that you're looking to get in trade?
Strasburg and Price are on the block. I'll be interested to see who I get for what offers I get, if any. So.
Are you looking to upgrade a certain position?
Not really, no. I'm always looking to trade though.
I did want to say that you did, because of the position you're in. You don't have to really worry about strikeouts, because you should be able to win strikeouts every single week.
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime you're punting a category, strikeouts and steals, I've got to pretty much compete in every single week since I'm giving away a free category.
That was a lot of the rationale behind the Polanco-Carrasco trade.
Yeah, that's basically the main reason I did it. Polanco's been slapping tons of bags. Otherwise, I would have kept Carrasco.
Well, but I can tell you right now that I am very hot on getting those two pitchers from you, and I would be willing to sell my soul for it, my offensive soul.
We can talk. I'm actually I wouldn't mind having George back on my team, George Springer. So
interesting. Hey, one more thing before we leave. Star, do you have any fantasy stories for these guys? Because we've got about half the league that's new. If you have any stories from the days of old, they would love to hear it.
I have to say that it looks like we're pushing almost an hour and a half, so we may need to save the story. Can't quite tell him for another podcast. But I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there's definitely several.
No, I was asking my wife here. She's with me right now, but she's clamming up apparently.
From a live perspective, Jordan and I got married. And I think I thought I was married to Drew Weddle for the first 6 or 7 months, because he would call at midnight almost every night to talk about fantasy.
Yeah, not the kind of fantasy that you would take on your dinner should be.
He still does that, just not to Jordan, by the way. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Ryan, is that it for tonight?